is Miss Mitchell, and I thought I would make today just a quick little dessert, a little cake, and it's called a depression cake. I have my handy dandy recipe, which you really always need whenever you're baking a cake. And this is called a depression cake because it was a recipe used during the Depression, which is a part of our history. And it was used when there was hardly any milk or eggs available. And so it uses some alternatives in that's rather than what's normally in a cake. So we're going to make this. I've already got some things pre-measured, and I'm going to measure out some other things. And my daughter might help us a little bit with the videoing, so and with the dumping in of stuff. So first thing we always do is remember we need to wash our hands. Okay, especially during this time with the COVID-19, we need to make sure we have no germs on our hands, because we certainly don't want to give anything to anyone who is going to be eating our cake. So this is my list of things I have going on. I already have out pre-measured out my all-purpose flour and my sugar, and I'll be giving you that information. I've got my water there, and I have distilled white vinegar. I have vanilla, well, almost empty bottle, but I have a new bottle, and baking soda, my flour, of course, salt, and oil. And I will come back in a few minutes. I already have an 8x8, I guess is what it is. You can either use a square or a round cake pan that's already greased and ready to go. And I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. We're going to go back over here and work on our cake. And the first thing we want to do is make sure that we dump in our dry ingredients. Okay, now this recipe calls for sifted flour. I don't even have a sifter. So I'm dumping in my AP flour, all-purpose flour. My daughter Emma's going to pour in our sugar. That's 1 cup of sugar, and that was 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And then, of course, I already put my sugar in, which is 1 cup of sugar. Now I need to put in 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Here, Emma, hold that for me. Okay, just put it right here. Alright, so I need one. This is a handy dandy little thing that shows me 1 teaspoon up to 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to measure out 1 level, if you can see that, 1 level teaspoonful of baking soda. Okay, and I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now this thing doesn't do 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to eyeball it. And I'm just going to put about half of that amount in here. Okay, see that? And I'm going to dump that in. Okay, next thing that I need dry. That's it. There's no more dry ingredients. So I'm going to take this stuff. Let's see. And I'm going to kind of mix it in together. I'm going to try to get rid of some of the lumps in that flour. You see that? Just kind of breaking up some of those those flour lumps, so that we don't have big gobs of flour in our cake. Okay. Now, usually we need our eggs and milk to make these cakes nice and fluffy. But they substituted the vinegar and the baking soda, to kind of give it that airy, nice airy feel about it. Okay, so next I want to put in 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay, Emma's going to take this over. I've got my measuring cup here. It can measure out 1.5 teaspoons. So I'm going to pour 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla in here. Pour. Get it all out. And I need 5 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Well, hold on just a second. Can't open it. Alright, so I'm going to count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And we need 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to push it back down to a teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of distilled white vinegar, which is the clear. There's a yellow one and a clear one. Need 1 teaspoon of that. Alright, I'm going to put that in. And then the last thing I need to put in, I might mix it up a little bit, is my 1 cup of water. Make sure when you're measuring out water that you put it down even with the countertop. So you make sure you get 1 cup and not a little more or a little less. So we're going to add our water in there. And we're going to mix this up good. It's going to look very liquidy because it's got a lot of water in it, right? Alright, so we're going to mix it up nice and good. We're just using a whisk. That's what I have on hand. And you just kind of get in there and make sure you get all the corners or edges of the bowl. Make sure you don't see any lumps in there. It's looking pretty good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. Now for fun, if you wanted to, you could add sprinkles, right? We could add, I don't know, you could add blueberries or whatever to this mixture. Now we're going to pour it into our pan. Okay. Alright. Pouring this mixture into the pan that we have ready to go in the oven. Our oven is already preheated to 350 degrees. Make sure we get all that yummy goodness. And guess what, guys? This doesn't have any eggs in it. So if you wanted to lick the batter, you could, right? Because there are no eggs in it. No eggs at all. And I like to just kind of tap it a little bit to throw any air bubbles in there. And then I'm just going to stick it in the oven. And put it on top rack center. Alright, and I'm going to set my timer to 35 minutes. And start. And then we just wait. We clean up our bowls. Okay, and we'll come back whenever this cake is finished. Guys, my cake has finished baking. It's just 1 layer. You see, I just used an 8-inch round cake pan. And I've made a real simple icing just to pour over it. It's nothing fancy. And then we're going to, we found some sprinkles, some fancy sprinkles. So we're going to put some of that on top after we pour our icing over. Okay, Emma, can you hold that for me?
You'll hold the icing, I'll put some sprinkles.
Okay. And I'm just going to pour this icing with just powdered sugar, some milk, a little vanilla. And I did not have any lemon juice, but I had lime juice because I like just a little bit of tartness with my icing. And I'm just going to see if I can bring it over to the side and let it drizzle down the side a little bit. Alright, like that. There we go.